So we've got the concepts, we understand what VLANs are, as well as some scenarios where we might use them. Now let's talk about how to configure them. In no particular order, we're going to go through configuring trunking, the VLAN trunking protocol, which is what? Not a trunking protocol. And we'll look at configuring VLANs. There's two different scenarios I want to show you. This first one, kind of the simpler, which is a single switch configuration of VLANs. And then I want to expand into it. I want to kind of naturally grow as we move into a multi-switch. And that's where we're going to get into trunking and VTP and all that. But starting off simple, on a single switch, all we need to do is create the VLANs and assign the devices. Now, I want to make sure, it's so easy when you get into Cisco to get lost in the commands, but then when you kind of come out of it and you're like, okay, so I've got the commands, you kind of miss. You're like, okay, what did I use those for again? You know, it's like the concept and the commands get disconnected. So what we're doing here is creating VLANs to separate devices. It could be we've got sales and marketing over here. It could be that we have maybe a server farm over here, and we've got our normal users over here. I mean, there's all kinds of different scenarios. Let me give you just one. I thought of this as a great common example of where VLANs can be used to actually save a lot of money. And I'll also put some disclaimers on this at the end. But a common way to set up your internet connection is to put two routers on the outside of your network that connects to the service provider. So let's say your service provider, let's just give it a name, is AT&T. Up here. And so we have redundant routers. So that way if one goes down, we have a backup over the other. So you've got this redundant router setup, and those redundant routers connect to a switch, and then that switch connects to yet another layer called the firewall. So I'll put router, firewall on here. So this, think of this as like the second layer of protection. These guys catch the big attacks that come in, but they're really routers. They're not meant to do too much security. But these guys are really the screeners. They're the ones that are like, okay, if you don't belong here, you're not getting in. That's the firewall. And then we come back here to our internal switches, our core switches. And oftentimes, depending on the kind of internet connection, we'll even have some switches on the outside. Like AT&T would plug into these switches. And what that allows us to do is actually, I mean, if we were to look at all the physical cabling, we would let me add a different color here. We would have redundant connections like this. So that way, if any one switch went down, if any one router went down, no matter what, we always had kind of a way that we can get there, right? So you kind of that's the scenario. Now the problem with that, I shouldn't say problem, but challenge that some companies experience is Cisco switches are not cheap. And when you look at buying these, you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I mean, it's kind of like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. I mean, you just start adding up the thousands of dollars that this kind of design works on. But one of the ways that you can use VLANs, and again, I'll disclaimer this, but I've done this a lot, to where you actually have one switch. Well, we'll just say two switches here for the redundancy. And I say, okay, these ports 1 through 4 are in VLAN 10. Ports, let's do 5 through 8 are in VLAN 20. And VLAN 10 we'll call it the outside. VLAN 20 will be what we call the DMZ. VLAN, and then we'll have VLAN like 30. I'm just making sure I got enough ports here. VLAN 30, which is 9 through, we'll just say 24 if it's a 24 port switch. VLAN 30, which is our inside. So what you could do is actually have, now the diagram is the same. We've got kind of the outside routers connected to switches, which connect to the AT&T network, right? And then coming in here to what we would technically call the DMZ, demilitarized zone, that goes between the routers and the firewalls, and then the firewalls connecting to the switches on the inside of the network. Well, it's still the same logical diagram that connects everything together. You got all the redundant ports and all that kind of stuff. But what happens is I'm actually taking, like these guys, if I were to look at the physical connection, essentially, let's just say this is fast Ethernet 0/0, fast Ethernet 0/0 on router 1 and router 2, right? So I would have AT&T coming into ports 1 and 2, router 1 going in here, router 2 going in here on their fast Ethernet 0/0 port. And then we get into the DMZ. We go, okay, well, right here, I'm plugging in router 1 on, let's just say this is fast Ethernet 1 or something like that. You see what I'm doing here? So fast Ethernet 0/1. I don't think I gave myself enough ports, but you kind of get the idea. Router 2, fast Ethernet 0/1 goes right here, and then we have our firewalls, firewall 1 and firewall 2 that plug in right here, and then inside of here, this is where our inside interface, that would be this side right here, our inside interface of our firewall. So what we're doing is we're taking one switch and we're actually using it to function as 3 separate switches. Now we've got 2 for redundancy in case something goes down, but we save thousands of dollars by doing that. Now, let me add the disclaimer to that. If you have a security auditor come into your network, it depends how much they know about networking. Some security auditors will be like, no way, dude. You've got the outside world plugging into the same switch as the DMZ as the inside. No way. That's going to be a security violation. You can't do that because it's scary because you have all of these things plugging into the same switch. Well, typically, those are the security auditors that maybe don't know that much about VLANs. Not saying all of them don't, but some don't. And they've read in a book somewhere that you shouldn't do that. And I would say in a purist model, I would agree. If you've got thousands to spend and you can drop switches everywhere, then sure, I would much rather do that. But a lot of times networks don't. Security auditors that know a lot about VLANs will look at this and they'll say, I'm not the most comfortable with it, but let me look at your config. Let me make sure that you've set your VLANs up the right way. And if you have, they'll be like, okay, then you're good. Yeah, I mean, it's flawless. Now, I'm not going to tell you which security auditor you're going to get if they ever do audit your network, but I will say that's one of the things that you can use VLANs for. That's just, I should have put that on the practical examples, but that's a tough one. That's a mind bender if you haven't really seen it before, to where it's like, how did that work? So just keep the practical in mind, practical examples as we start this configuration, so it doesn't just become a series of commands that you are typing. Okay, so let's go into the configuration. I'm going to bring up my switch. Sitting here in user mode, let's get into privilege mode, enable. And let's first off get our bearings, like what's going on this switch. I'm going to do a show VLAN. Well, actually, before I even do that, I'll do my favorite command, show IP interface brief. So I type that in. I see, okay, this is the switch we've been using the entire time. VLAN 1 is given the IP address 10.1.1.10. Okay, good, got that. We've got only port that is currently operational. Looks like fast Ethernet 0/18. Oh, I've got one more. Fast Ethernet 0/18. But I'm also looking down. I've got a laptop that I just plugged in there to fast Ethernet 0/24. So 2 ports that are up in this environment. Now let me add one more show command to your library. I'm going to type in the command show VLAN. Now, some people will, if you look at documentation, a lot of times you'll see people type it all the time, show VLAN brief. That's fine. I mean, let me show you the difference. So I do a show VLAN, and it shows you kind of all the VLANs that exist. So you've got these extraneous VLANs down here, and then if you have remote span VLAN, we're not even going to get into that. I mean, just kind of a little more information. If I do a show VLAN brief, you can see it kind of cuts off. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but it cuts off these extraneous VLANs, or this extra information down at the bottom, giving you kind of a little more detailed information about what those VLANs are all about. Really, all we care about, I will say, is the output of show VLAN brief. So whatever command you like to use. So what we see from this output is that we have currently on this switch 1 VLAN, and all of the ports are a member of that. Now, you might be saying, well, no, Jeremy, it's 5 VLANs because I see 1002, 3, 4. These are actually, you can see that this status is active. This one is active and unsupported. The only reason that they're there is because when somebody created the VLAN standard many moons ago, I mean, FIDI networks, this was kind of one of the original fiber optic networks. I mean, token ring networks. It's like, hello, we're back in years beyond, at that point. These were commonplace when VLANs were first envisioned and created. And so the standard said you gotta have these VLANs for those things. So Cisco being like, well, we gotta follow the standard. You've got these VLANs that are on just about every switch that really aren't used at all. So right now we have one real VLAN, we'll say, that exists, and all the ports are a member of it. So how do you set up more? First off, move to the global configuration mode. Now VLANs affect the switch as a whole, so we do it from here. We type in VLAN followed by, and I'll put the question mark, and we type in what VLAN number we would like to create. So I'll say VLAN 50. How about we start there? VLAN 50. Now it takes me into a VLAN configuration mode. Not that much I can do from here. I mean, I'll say there's one main thing that I do, and that is going to be changing the name of the VLAN. You can see it right there in the list. ASCII name. It's always good to name them because, let me show you. If I do a show VLAN, oh, you have to actually exit out to apply the VLAN configuration. But you can see that it names it. The name of this is VLAN 0050. Not too descriptive when you're trying to figure out what exactly that VLAN is. So go back in there and I'll type in name and let's just do sales. Anytime I type names in Cisco, I like doing it in all capitals because when I'm doing a show run, it stands out to me more. I'm like, oh, look, right there. Ooh, that's something I typed in. Or like when I do an interface description, if I go under an interface, I do interface fast Ethernet 0/1, and I say description, and I'll put on my caps lock key, uplink to AT&T router or something like that. That way, when I do a show run interface, I see all the output. My eyes just kind of draw to that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what the description is. So I now have my first VLAN. Let me do a show VLAN brief. And I've got VLAN 50 is sales. We've named it, and it's that easy. I mean, we can go in there. We can type in VLAN 100. Name servers. Now, I'm jumping VLANs by the 50s. That's not normal. Usually people will say, okay, VLAN 10, VLAN 11, 12, 13. But you can create any VLAN number you'd like between 1 and 4096. So I can do that show VLAN brief. I now see 2 VLANs are created. Now, I've created them, but they're not doing anything. They're just there. They're in the running config. I actually have to assign ports to them before they are active. You can see step 3 up there on the screen. Now, right now, let me get resituated here. I'll do a show IP interface brief. Right now, I have port fast Ethernet 0/17. This guy right here. Oh, wait, no, 18. 18 is connected to my PC, the one that I'm sitting in front of right now. Now, this PC happens to have on that interface the IP address 10.1.1.100. And what I want to show you, my mouse is just jumping all over. Good thing Cisco's all typing. I'm going to type in ping 10.1.1.10. -T. -T says just keep on pinging. Ping till the cows come home. That's not the output I'd like to see. Okay, there we go. The first ping sometimes just dies. So we're pinging away, and by the way, if you highlight something, it stops. So I'll just hit the enter key. So it's just pinging along. Life is good because this guy. Why? This guy, fast Ethernet 0/18, is in VLAN 1, and I want to really emphasize this point. Remember, when I say my ports are all in VLAN 1, I'm talking about a layer 2 concept. Like within the switch, this is kind of a layer 2. It has nothing to do with IP addresses or anything like that. But when I go into my switch and I type in interface VLAN 1, now I'm configuring a layer 3 interface for that VLAN. So in a nutshell, when you assign a port to VLAN 1, it's going to be able to reach this interface VLAN 1. That's how it's created. Let me show that to you because that I know that can be one of those concepts that's like, what? Say that again? So when I see VLAN 1 right here, this is the management interface of the switch, and it's reachable by anybody in VLAN 1. Now let me show you this. I can also type in VLAN 1. Now, what's the difference? I typed in VLAN 1. That's moving into the configuration mode for this one, the layer 2 VLAN. Come back here, exit out. Interface VLAN 1. I'm in the notice one mode is a VLAN mode. That's kind of the layer 2. That's where I can name VLANs and name VLANs. I mean, that's about the only thing that you do from there. But interface VLAN 1 is where I'm into the layer 3 interface. If I always draw it like this when I'm drawing a switch, the little kind of sheep staff, that's where I go in and say, okay, the IP address on that VLAN interface is 10.1.1.10. So any computer that's in VLAN 1 will be able to reach that. Now, let me prove that to you. I'm going to go into the switch, And I've got this ping continually going. Can't really see too much movement other than that little 2 milliseconds moving beyond because it's all really fast. So I'm going to exit out here, and I'm going to go into interface fast Ethernet 0/18. Let's just put a description on there, and we'll say this is Jeremy's PC. And now I'm going to actually put that port into VLAN 50. Here's how I do it. Switch port access VLAN 50. Enter. I've now moved that port out of VLAN 1 and into VLAN 50. And I am totally flabbergasted that this ping is continuing on right now. Hang on. Let me make sure that was indeed the right port. I got this guy coming in. Oh! That's not my PC. Sorry. Fast Ethernet 0/18. Up arrow. Description. Jeremy's laptop. Okay, let's exit out here. Interface fast Ethernet 0/24. There we go. Description. Jeremy's PC. That's the right port. Okay, now let's keep that ping going. We've got 2 milliseconds. You can see it going up there. I'm going to hit the up arrow, and I'm going to throw this one into VLAN 50 as well. Now you notice my little 2 milliseconds, it stopped moving. Why? Because I just moved my port into a different VLAN. And now it's saying, hey, you're down. You know, we can no longer connect to that. Notice right here, VLAN 1 just went down as well. Wow, that's actually a really valuable concept to see. But let me exit out and explain a little bit more before we get there. I'm going to do a show VLAN brief. Okay, and I can see now that both 18 and 24 have moved over to VLAN 50. Now, you remember, hang on, let me grab my pen. You remember that that I have the management interface on here, VLAN 1. Well, I just have a PC on 24 and a laptop on 18. Here's my little laptop. And I just moved those guys into VLAN 50. So what the switch is saying is, okay, you're speaking on a totally different fabric, a totally different layer 2 network than my management interface is on. You can't reach it. Now here's the interesting thing. This little status message right there is very interesting. I'm going to do a show IP interface brief. Show IP interface brief. And I notice that VLAN 1, look at the status. Look at the status. It says VLAN 1 has this IP address. It's up, as in physically, if I can say that about a logical interface. It's kind of there, like it's supposed to be up, like it's ready to run. But the protocol, meaning layer 2, its communication, is actually down. Why is that? Well, there is a rule that Cisco has for VLAN interfaces. They say if you have a VLAN interface, but there's no active ports in that VLAN, this interface will turn itself off. It'll go down because it's kind of like, well, I've got a VLAN 1 interface, but there's no one here in VLAN 1. I'm looking out at this vast terrain and I see nothing. So there's no point for me to even waste resources by running this VLAN 1 interface because there's nothing out there to use it. There's nobody there. Now, let me show you this. I'm going to take a cable. I'm going to move my laptop from port 18 to port, I'm guessing that's 20. Switches upside down. So I took it out of 18, right? And I plugged it into 20. So I see Fast Ethernet 20 just got changed up. But wait, hold it, watch it. It's coming. Please. It'll get there. Hang on. Wait, because VLAN 20, let me add explanation while the Cisco switch is thinking. Show VLAN brief. Fast Ethernet 0/20 is in VLAN 1, and what's going to happen is as soon as this Cisco switch gets off its rear and starts doing, there we go, starts doing something, it's going to be like, oh, hey, my VLAN 1 interface should go up, and thank you, Cisco switch, for bailing me out right there. I'm going, maybe this is broken. So VLAN 1 has now gone up because it says, now I've got an active interface. Something is in the VLAN 1 network, so now I can respond to that again. Now, let me show you something else. Now this is going to be, this is a bit beyond. Hey, my keyboard is just doing some funny things. Hang on 1 second. Wow, I actually had to exit the whole terminal program. Something odd happened. So I'm going to go in and do a show IP interface brief again. So I see VLAN 1 is active, and I want to show you something. This is actually a little bit beyond, but I think you guys will catch it. Watch this. I'm going to go in and I'm going to, well, first off, remember I do show VLAN brief. right? We created VLAN 50. How did we do that? VLAN 50. That was it, and it's created. We named it then, and remember, VLAN 50 is the layer 2 VLAN. Here we go. I'm going to type in interface VLAN 50. I've just created a new interface that something in VLAN 50 is able to access. Now, let me write something on the board here. You remember, VLANs are a network. So I'm gonna write a bold statement on the board right now. VLANs equals an IP subnet equals a broadcast domain. As in, those are one and the same all across the board. Like, when you create a new VLAN, you have to create a new IP subnet. We're going to talk about subnetting later, but just think of it like a new network. Like, if VLAN 1 is 10.1.1.0/24, which it is right now, then VLAN 50 can't be 10.1.1.0. It's a different network. So I would have to come up with maybe 10.1.50.0. That would be a different network. Oh, I missed my dot there. Because remember, /24 is a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, trying to squeeze it in. So that would mean that these first 3 octets represent the network. So that's a totally different network, right? 10.1.50. So we have to create for VLAN 50 a new network equals a broadcast domains. That means the VLANs on 50 stay on VLAN 50. VLANs on 1 stay on 1. So when I come back here, I can go into VLAN 50, which... Let me do a show IP, not show VLAN brief, show IP interface brief. And we now see this fancy new interface that has appeared. It's virtual. We just created it out of the blue, called VLAN 50, but it doesn't have an IP address yet. I have to give it one. So I'm going to go in there, and I'm in interface VLAN 50 right now. I'll do IP address 10.1.50. Let's stay consistent. 10. 255.255.0. Bam. I've added that in, and now we have this IP address on this VLAN 50 interface. So now my computer's broken because the problem is it's still in the old network. We do an IP config, and my computer is still in 10.1.1, but I've moved it to VLAN 50. So this is the VLAN 1 network. This is not the VLAN 50 network. You follow? You follow what I'm doing here? So I'm going to go in, bust out control panel. Little network status and task, go to the adapter setting. I'm at my Apple USB Ethernet adapter. I'm going to change it. I'm going to put him on the 10.1.50 network. So now he's 10.1.50.100. Close this guy down. Let's hit the up arrow, make sure everything's good. Going up, 10.1.50.100. So question, can I ping 10.1.50.10? Some of you are like, yes! Some of you are like, maybe. So, no. So I feel the mix of answers. Yes, I will be. 10.1.50.10. Come on, give me that. Give me past that first little request timeout. Oh, there we go. Because now it's saying you are now in this zone. Essentially, I've created this little separation to where I've got this guy, which is my laptop, in VLAN 1. This guy, gotta have a new color for that, right? This guy is in my PC, my desktop, which is in VLAN 50, and I have 2 of those little routed interfaces. VLAN 1, IP address 10.1.1.10, and VLAN 50, 10.1.1.50. Can I tell you something? In that single switch demonstration, where all I did was create a couple VLANs, created a VLAN interface, right? I've actually shown you. I'm gonna expand on this later. I've actually shown you how to set up a layer 3 switch. Oh, seriously, that's a CCNP concept right there. That's like beyond. What we've just done right there is set up a layer 3 switch, because this 3550 actually has. Can't see that, but it's a 3550. Actually has routing capabilities within it. And what I can do, okay, now forgive me if I'm going beyond and you're like, I'm not hanging with you. That's fine. Fast forward, please. But for those that are, hang with me. I'm gonna point this guy. I can actually point this guy, which is 10.1.50.100. You know, this is the 0 network. I can point him to that as his default gateway. So this computer's like, okay, where do I go to get off my 10.1.15 network? How do I get there? I'm going to look at my default gateway, which is pointed to this guy who has routing capabilities. And this guy can now actually start routing him to other VLANs. Maybe this guy has a connection to the internet. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. Can you tell I'm kind of psyched about this? So VLANs on a single switch. I probably did within the first 2 minutes of this demonstration, but just to show how it was working, to create those VLAN interfaces there, that actually created a layer 3 switch for us. But we'll save the complete configuration of that till later. I'm doing that because I totally have one of those feelings right now that somebody's watching, they're like, dude, can't you just show me how to configure a VLAN without going ballistic on me and busting out layer 3 switches? Yep. I totally get that. So here's what I want to do. I want to take us now into a multiple switch configuration, and I want to do it all over again with multiple switches, kind of from scratch, so we can see the base level and just build upon it. I think this will be really good. The reason why is because first off, we've got CBT switch that we've been configuring all this time. I'm going to rename that guy. He's going to become CBT switch 1. And then down here, we've got our new friend, which doesn't have a name at all right now because he has no configuration. So I'm going to call him CBT switch 2. And I think this is going to be really good because he has no configuration. It'll give us a chance to do a flyby review of essentially the base configuration of the switch and then add the VLANs on top of it all in one place. So I just plugged in CBT switch 2. It's powering up. Meanwhile, let's go into CBT switch, which will now become hostname CBT switch 1. And I'm going to do I'm going to do a few commands here. I'm going to do no VLAN 50. No VLAN 100. I mean, I'm blown away everything that we just did. Okay, so I've eliminated those VLANs. Let's see what else we got. Let's do a VTP mode transparent. I'll explain what I'm doing in just a moment. VTP mode transparent. VTP domain, and let's just call it null. For now. Okay, ignore the pieces that I've put in place there. Okay, so I've now got this switch, which let me do a show VLAN. Is now back to the way it was. We just have VLAN 1 right there. We've got our interfaces. We've got fast Ethernet. Notice one thing. Where's fast Ethernet 0/18? Missing. Where's fast Ethernet 0/20? Missing. Because if I look at the switch, they are amber. They are broken because if I do a show run interface fast Ethernet 0/ let's just go 24. Notice this guy is still assigned to VLAN 50, and I just blew VLAN 50 away. That's that symptom I showed you last nugget of what VTP can do by eliminating all of your VLANs. So we'll fix that. But for now, let's jump over to our new friend, CBT switch 2. I'm moving my console cable. Okay, good. So this guy is brand new. Just move my console cable over to him. So let's do a flyby base configuration. I think this would be a great test. So first off, privilege mode, global config, host name, CBT switch 2. Let's go under the console port, line console 0. Let's do password. Cisco, require logins to the port. Let's also add in there logging synchronous so that those console messages don't interrupt what I'm typing. And I'll also do a no exact dash timeout to keep it from kicking me off when I'm sitting here for 5 minutes. Not something good to do in production because you want to keep that port secure. We'll do enable secret. We'll protect our privilege mode by doing enable secret Cisco. So now I'm requiring the password of Cisco to get in there. Let's see what else. Let's put a logon banner. Banner MOTD, and we'll do, let's just do ampersand. Ampersand, and we'll say asterisk, 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 welcome. That's not good. Don't log in. Asterisk, asterisk. I don't think that'll stand up in court, but nonetheless, we'll add it in there, asterisk, 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 and we'll put an ampersand there so it knows I'm done. Hit the enter key. So I've got my logon banner configured. Okay. Okay, we've got to do, we've got a VLAN 1 port right there, which I'll do interface VLAN 1 and power that guy on. Let's do a no shutdown. Give it the IP address 10.1.1.11 because I don't want to conflict with the other switch. 255.255.255.0. Now, something just going along with what we just saw in the single switch config. If I do that show IP interface brief, you notice it's staying down. Now, why is that? Because this switch has no active ports. Now I do have these guys connected. This guy is connected on fast Ethernet 0/1 on both sides. But if you remember, I shut down the interfaces I wasn't using. The first, I think it was like 12 interfaces. I shut them down on that switch in one of the nuggets. And it's actually the best practice is to keep it shut down while you do all this configuration, because some of the commands we're going to type in are going to make that interface go up and down and up and down and up and down. So we've got to shut down. So that's good. So we've got enable secret. We've got everything should be good. That's a good base configuration. Actually, we forgot the most important command. Save. So now we've got our config. Oh well, officially supported Cisco command. Copy run start. And now we are saved. Okay, so with that in place, we can now get in. Again, we're going from scratch, starting off with VTP. Now, right now, I'm going to do a show VTP status on this switch. That's when we're dealing with VTP. That's probably the command that you want to know. Show VTP status. We can see that out of the box, this guy is a server. It's running VTP version 1, which is fine. Version 2, by the way, adds support for token ring. So if you're running to the new feature set, that's about all you're going to get in version 2. There's some other minor things, but nothing big. This is something worth knowing. VTP. So if you run VTP, first off, how many VLAN numbers total are supported? Anyone remember? Yes, 4,096 total VLAN numbers. Well, if you use VTP, you're going to be limited to an initial set of, I think it's somewhere, well, let me show you this. We do a show VLAN brief. You will be limited to up to 1002. Essentially, VTP does not support VLAN numbers higher than 1005. Which in these guys you can't use at all. So 1001 and below would be what you are able to use. So that is another limitation of VTP. Now, if you convert over to transparent mode, which you remember disables VTP, then you're good. But let's start off. Okay, so we're gonna do. Trying to think. Why don't we do this? I'm gonna jump back over to CBT switch 1. And let's start our configuration over there. I'm going to do a show VTP status on that side. I just kind of reset everything. I said VTP operating mode transparent, which disables VTP, and set it to null. The reason I did that is I wanted to make sure I zero out the configuration revision so that we are not getting these strange configuration revisions where something just suddenly starts replicating. We don't know what happened and all that. I also want to mention that when you bring up a Cisco switch, I don't think you'll see this documented. Like when we looked at CBT switch 2, you notice the VTP domain name is nothing. That is what Cisco officially calls null. Now I typed in null as the domain name, but that's the actual name. Cisco officially calls a blank domain name a null, and this is kind of I don't want to say dangerous, but something to be aware of. When you pull a Cisco switch out that has no configuration for VTP like this guy, the very first VTP advertisement that he receives, he will accept and automatically join that domain. So what that means is somebody can bring in a brand, if you're not careful, and somebody can negotiate a trunk port with you, which we're going to stop that in just a second, negotiate a trunk port with you, and they bring in a brand new switch with no configuration, VTP will say, hey, we're part of the domain name, let's just call it CBT Nuggets is our domain name. So I'm part of the CBT Nuggets domain name, and it replicates. Now, if the switch has no domain name, it will automatically join whatever the first domain name is that it hears. So it'll say, okay, well, great, I'll be part of the CBT Nuggets domain. And I will automatically download, if I could spell, I can automatically download all of the VLANs that you have and put them on my switch. Hello, Yikes. Cisco did it that way so that you could pull new switches out of the box and kind of have them plug and play. You just plug them in and poof, they negotiate, they get the VLANs, they get all of that kind of stuff. But if this is a malicious person with their switch cubicle, that means they can also now add VLANs, delete VLANs, modify VLANs, do everything, and it replicates back up here and pretty much destroys your network. Not good. So the key that we want to prevent is this. This, by the way, in VLAN security, absolutely the number one key for all VLAN security. I would say if you want the most important security aspect of all VLANs, this is it. Make sure you hard code your trunk ports. Hard code. And you disable that dynamic mode, that forsaken dynamic mode that is on Cisco switches. Remember this when we do a show, let's do a show run, interface, fast Ethernet 0 / let's just do 5. Every port out of the box on Cisco is switch port mode, dynamic, desirable. And now we can start getting an understanding saying dynamic, meaning I can be an access port, which connects to PCs, or I can be a trunk port, but I really desire to be a trunk. No, you don't. I'm going into interface range, fast Ethernet 0 / 1 through 24, every port that's on this switch. And I'm doing switch port mode access. Done. Get that dynamic, desirable mode out of there. That is a huge security vulnerability because anybody can negotiate a trunk. Anybody could join your VTP domain. It's not good. So then I go back and start configuring the trunk ports one by one. So let me back up. So first off, configure the VTP domain or VTP name and mode. Here's how you do it. VTP domain and then whatever the name is. Well, now I came up with CBT nuggets. Key point to be aware of. This is case sensitive. So if I use capital CBTN, I have to do that on the other side, otherwise they won't replicate. So I've changed my domain name over and I'm going to type in VTP mode and we'll put server. Now that's the default. I just kind of backed it out to transparent and back to server so I can kind of reset the configuration revision. Now step 2, I'm going to configure my trunk ports. My trunk is on interface fast Ethernet 0 / 1. Remember, that is what is connected right here to the other side. So I'm going to go into, I'm on CBT switch 1. I'm going to do switch port, well, the actual command is switch port mode trunk. Remember, these are the I would say the 3 major modes: access, dynamic, trunk. We always want to use either access or trunk. Don't even worry about this one. That's way down the road. Access and trunk are the 2 that we use. Now I'm going to get an error when I do this because this is an older switch. Oh, wait a sec. It's because I did a command previously. So there's actually, let me go under an interface I haven't played with before. I'll do interface 0 / 2 and do switch port mode trunk. And this was the error that I expected. An interface whose trunk encapsulation is auto cannot be configured as trunk mode. When I was just playing around before I started this recording, I went in and tested a few commands to make sure that they worked right. One of them, let me go back under interface fast Ethernet 0 / 1, is the command switch port trunk encapsulation, and I get to pick. Now, newer switches do not support that command at all because they have completely eliminated this protocol from the mix. Remember, that was the proprietary Cisco trunking protocol from way back in yesteryear that is gone. We now only use .1Q. So older switches will support both. Newer switches, you probably will not even see this trunk encapsulation. So you can, on newer switches, just type in switch port mode trunk, and you're on the way. So I've got CBT switch 1, I've got the VTP domain name and mode, I've got the trunk port. Now let's add some VLANs back into the mix. So I'm going to go exit out of here. Let's do VLAN 50 because I blew them away, right? VLAN 50, and we'll do name sales. Exit out, VLAN 100, and we'll do name servers, right? That's what I did before. And the reason I'm recreating them now is because now I'm in VTP server mode. And when I type in a show VTP status, look at what's happening. Every VLAN I'm creating is incrementing my configuration revision. Remember how these, from the last nugget, how these guys stay in sync? This guy's like, hey, I'm Rev 2. This guy's going to say, well, I'm Rev 0 when he comes up. So you beat me and I'll replace my VLAN database with your VLAN database. So that's what I'm doing as I'm bringing those up. Now it's saying, okay, VLAN 50, interface VLAN 50 changed to up because it has some active ports in there. And that's good. So we're starting to see our switch come back to life. Let's do a show VLAN brief. And you see those ports that are assigned there now showing up again. Those were the ports that are assigned that were amber a moment ago because I deleted all the VLANs out of there. So we've got now, okay, VLANs are configured. We've named the VLANs. And on this switch anyway, we've assigned the ports to the VLAN. All right, so now, hang on, before we do all this, I'm going to click over to this switch, CBT switch 2, and do a show VTP status. He is still zeroed out and it has no domain name because, remember, I have this port shut down. I do a show IP interface brief, and I have the link down between CBT switch 1 and CBT switch 2. So let's see what happens when I bring it up. Click back over. CBT switch 1, show IP interface brief. I can see fast Ethernet 0/1 is indeed shut down. No shutdown. All right, we're bringing that port up. And as I mentioned, it's best to keep it shut down when you're doing this configuration because configuring the trunk port, doing switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk encapsulation, yada, yada, and all that stuff actually causes the port to go up and down, up and down. And if you've got a monitoring system, it'll start going nuts on you saying, oh, your interfaces are going down. So I'm going to back out. I'm going to do that command now that I haven't talked about, but we're going to use a lot. Show CDP neighbors, which shows you what directly connected Cisco devices you have. And I'm now seeing CBT switch 1 sees CBT switch 2 out its local interface, fast Ethernet 0/1. So I'm like, okay, it's online. That's good. So now let's hop back over. Well, actually, man, I may not have to bend over anymore and get my console port. I'm going to try and ping. Let's do a show IP interface brief. I'm going to see if I can ping him on the other side. Remember, we gave him the IP address 10.1.1.11. And there we go. We've got success. When you do pings, exclamation points are good things. Dots are drops. So we drop the first one and then continue on from there. So now I can actually type in telnet. This is from CBT switch 1, 10.1.1.11. Oh my goodness. Did I forget that from the base configuration? That's horrible. See, that's what happens when you do a base configuration. Well, no, actually, I did this on purpose to demonstrate a point. Remember, I told you way back in the beginning, I said, if you don't set a password on your VTY ports, then you're going to get the message, password required, but none set. And that's because I've jumped back over that. I'm going to do a show run begin with line, and I'll see on here, there's my VTY lines. They're requiring a login. I did it on the console port. I forgot to do it on the VTY line. They're requiring a login, but I didn't set a password. Now, see, I just fully, I completely did that on purpose to demonstrate. Yeah, all right, whatever. You get it. So I'm going to type in password Cisco. We've now assigned that, and now that I started, of course I want to do it now. I'm going to jump back over to CBT switch 1 and let's telnet over 10.1.1. There we go. Now it's asking for password. Cisco enable Cisco. Good. Now I'm on CBT switch 2. So now I can do a show VTP status. Let's see what's going on over here. Check it out. Previously, this guy was nothing, right? Previously, let's scroll back. I didn't do anything to this guy, behind the scenes. I'm live with you the whole time. Previously, we did a show VTP status, right? He was blanked out. There was nothing there. We went back over to, so we did a show IP interface brief, showed that the interface is down. We went back over to switch 1, did the configuration, or actually just powered up that port. That's all we did. And then all of a sudden, poof. This guy has now this domain. That's what I was telling you. It'll accept the very first domain name that it hears about and accept all the VLANs. So let's verify. Let's do a show VLAN brief, and I can see that VTP has done its job. VLAN 50, VLAN 100 are now over there. And this guy's a server as well. Remember, show VTP status. I can see he's a server as well. So we can even test it going the other. Whoa. We can test it going the other way. So I'm going to go into global config. Watch this. I'll create VLAN 150. Let's name it the tech department. Control Z. So now I've got this. And if VTP is working right, I just went to the switch 2, and it's now at config rev 3. Show VTP or show VLAN brief. I see the tech group over there. Let's exit out from this telnet session. I'm back over on switch 1, and I'll do a show VLAN over here. Seeing it? VTP's doing its job. It's replicating the VLANs between each other. Now all I would have to do is add whatever ports I wanted to those specific VLANs. All right, last thing I wanted to show you. before we wrap up is remember we were saying I said you can only create up to VLAN. What did I say? Like 1002 if you're running VTP. Let me first off prove that to you. I'm going to go in and let's do VLAN. Let's do VLAN 2000. Now initially, hang on, you're like, whoa, buddy, you're wrong. No. Initially, it looks like you can create that. You can even name it. I'm like, name broken. You can name it. You can do whatever you want. But watch what happens. I'm going to exit back out. Denied. It's like, sorry, you cannot, you can't create that VLAN 2000. See, huh? So VLAN 2000 can't be created. You're in VTP server mode, or essentially you're using VTP. This isn't allowed. Now I can go in there and I can say VTP mode transparent. Cisco's recommendation is to use that, which turns off VTP. Now the other guy is running its server. He's doing his server thing. That's fine. We can now be transparent. Now I can go in and create VLAN 2000. Name not broken. Exit back out, and now we're applying just fine. Show VLAN brief, but notice this is not. Oh, there it is right there. Not broken VLAN. This is not going to replicate to the other side because VTP is now disabled. So someone asked me once. They go, is a good strategy? Maybe you're first setting up a network. Is a good strategy to use VTP? You know, replicate all the VLANs and then go around and turn it all off. Yeah, I could see that. I could totally agree with that if that's something you'd like to do. I will say once you get away from VTP, though, for me, when I set up a new network, I just manually go at everything. I go on every switch and manually create only the VLANs that belong there because VTP will replicate all VLANs everywhere. So it's a little messier. So let me do a show VLAN brief. Just to prove VLAN 2000 does not show up on switch 2. So we'll wrap up by putting Cisco's best practice on here, VTP mode transparent. And now we have completely disabled VTP. But in summary, we have now configured VLANs. We've set up VTP. We've set up trunking. And we now have a VLAN capable environment. We haven't done too much beyond that with them, but that's at least, we'll call it the base configuration of all VLANs. And I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.